Good evening. I call to order this regular meeting of the Scottsdale Unified School District. It is August 20th and the time is 5 p.m. Please stand. Board Member Beckham, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we will have a roll call, starting from my right.
Sandy Kravitz.
Barbara Pilberg.
Allison Beckham.
Patty Beckman and
Jan Michael Greenberg.
Board Member Greenberg is present telephonically. Okay, do any of our board members have any changes to the agenda? Nope. Okay. I move to approve the agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Board Member Kravitz seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. The agenda is approved. We now move to Dr. Creekard to present our student and staff recognitions and celebrations.
Thank you, President Beckman and members of the board. To kick off the New Year's celebrations, we have one special significance to share with you this afternoon. Dr. Melissa Sakos, our Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Education, is going to tell us
That's what I
all
was just
about
wondering.
Your mic isn't on.
Is
And
your
my mic
on?
wasn't on.
Yeah.
Dr. Sakos.
Good afternoon, President Beckman, governing board members, Dr. Creekard, and Sandra. I am pleased to be able to share with you this evening a celebration that we will begin by celebrating tonight with our new challenge coin. So, and none other than Cheyenne Traditional School to start that celebration with. I would like to invite up Principal Stombras, along with teachers Deborah Harris, Heather Glover, Amy Peterson, Lindsay Saylor, Christine Globakar, and Annie Elmore, up to the podium, please. And Ms. Cher Fessemeyer. There she is. And a very special guest, if you'll help me welcome, is Mr. Jim Sexton from Spalding Education. All right. Entire team. One of the hallmarks of traditional education is the way reading and math are taught. At Cheyenne Traditional School, the Spalding method of instruction is used across all grade levels to develop skilled readers, critical listeners, and accomplished writers and spellers. To this end, Cheyenne is now officially accredited by Spalding Education International. Cheyenne can claim 3 Spalding trained teachers in every classroom, 3 certified teachers, Ms. Harris, Ms. Glover, who teach kindergarten, and Ms. Peterson, who teaches 3rd grade, and 3 Spalding certified teacher instructors, Ms. Saylor, who teaches 1st grade, Ms. Globakar, who teaches 2nd grade, and Ms. Mayhew, who teaches kindergarten but was unable to be here this evening. Principal Stombras, would you like to share some additional information about this amazing award?
Thank you. Thank you, President Beckman, members of the board, Dr. Creekard, and Sandra. Thank you for this opportunity to celebrate and recognize Cheyenne Traditional School's accreditation by Spalding Education International. Spalding is a total language arts program that is phonics-based and multisensory in instruction and in practice. Cheyenne Traditional School is committed to increasing student achievement by using the Spalding method of instruction. The Spalding method develops skilled readers, critical listeners, accomplished writers, spellers, and thinkers, and for 22 years, Cheyenne has been a Spalding school. Students are consistently top performers in academic achievement and the state of Arizona. I want to introduce you to Mr. Jim Sexton, who is the President and CEO of Spalding International, and he can speak to the national accreditation that Cheyenne has received.
Good evening, Board and Administration. On behalf of Spalding Education International, it's my pleasure to recognize Cheyenne Traditional School this evening to let you know a little bit about the coursework that these teachers have spent lots of hours completing over the last few years. Spalding's courses are also recognized by an organization called, I'll make sure I'll have it because it's a long one, we have an abbreviation at work, an International Multisensory Language Education Council. We lovingly refer to it as MSLC. And MSLC's the accrediting body that accredits our courses that all of these teachers completed, and it also meets the IDA standards for teachers of reading. These courses prepare teachers to become multisensory language arts instructors. They also have the ability to go on, and we've had a few of our instructors do this, that go on to become language therapists by taking an additional national exam that qualifies them as a language therapist. So we are pleased with the work and commitment on behalf of Cheyenne Traditional's PTO and administration and teachers, and we give them a round of applause for their great accomplishment.
So Principal Stombris, if you will help me hand out these certificates while I attempt to master the challenge coin handoff appropriately. Well, our first one is to Mr. Jim Sexton. You hand the certificate, and then I do this.
Oh, thank you.
Christine Globacar. Oh, there you are. Congratulations.
I'm supposed to do that.
And next one. Heather Glover. Congratulations. Thank you. Let us see the next one. Deborah Harris. Yeah, congratulations. Amy Peterson. Congratulations. Lindsay Saylor. Congratulations. And Annie Elmore. There you are, Annie. Congratulations. Congratulations, all of you.
And my congratulations as well to Cheyenne, all of you at Cheyenne. Oh, that way for pictures. President Beckman, if I may, I'll just move on to superintendent's comments.
Yes, please.
I would first like to report on the very successful start of the 2019-2020 school year in Scottsdale Unified School District. We are pleased with enrollments. It's what we look at continuously in the district because enrollment means budget, which means programs for kids. Some of you may know the awful truth that last year the district declined by 600 students from the previous year. This year, right now, where we had projected a similar decline, we are improving every day. We are, at this point, as of today, we are 21 students below the 40th day count of last year. Only 21, not another 600. And the 40th day is important because that is the day, this year it occurs on October 1st, that gives us a fairly accurate picture of our enrollment at the greatest level for the school year. The state bases its this year's funding of the district on our average daily membership, first day through the 100th day, which falls in January. So we watch that carefully because it determines the dollars that we have to bring the education to the students. More students equals more programs. It means adding staff rather than cutting staff. More programs for students is what we are about. Other exciting things are happening here in SUSD, and if you want to be part of it in a capacity other than being a parent or a neighbor, we offer meaningful career opportunities and are always looking to improve our outstanding team of talent. Our latest job openings can be found at susd.org/jobs. We completed a a hiring fair on Friday where a number of people were hired for paraprofessional positions, nutrition services positions, and other classified positions that are so important for the support of the classroom. And we thank our communications department for the advertising and marketing of that program that had such a great turnout at our hiring fair. Next, I would like to tell you about a series of meetings that I will host in each of SUSD's 5 learning communities this school year, in addition to the many events that I attend all year. We're calling them Coffee with Creekard. Obviously, the marketing department had no hand in that. These meetings are my opportunity to get out of the house, so to speak, to meet and speak with members of the community. I really enjoy doing that and finding out what's on people's mind and what their concerns are for our schools and our district. They are also an opportunity for me to share with parents, neighbors, and the community at large the good things that are happening in SUSD. The meeting schedule is posted on the district website, susd.org. The meetings will take place at the high school of each learning community, and we'll kick it off next Wednesday, August 28th at Saguaro High School in the community room at 8 a.m. The meetings will only run until 10 a.m. or so. I'm sure that I will stay longer if there are more conversation to be had. But if you're running late, don't worry about it. Come on down. Next, not to be outdone by that, our Chief Financial Officer, Jeff Gadd, will hold his own series of meetings next month regarding the upcoming maintenance and operations override election on November 5th. These informational meetings will also be posted on SUSD's website, so you can put them in your calendar now. September 10th, 12th, 19th, 24th, and 26th. The first one at Coronado, right here, but actually in the Media Center at Coronado. On September 12th at Chaparral High School, September 19th, Saguaro High School, September 24th at Desert Mountain, and September 26th at Arcadia High School. All of the meetings will start at 6:30 p.m. and run for 1 hour. I want to thank Mr. Gadd, Financial Director Shannon Crozier, and the Finance Department staff for their hard work every day to ensure SUSD's financial future. This will be a unique election in that it will be by mail-in ballot only. We are told by the Maricopa County School Superintendent's Office, which is responsible for conducting the election, that every SUSD resident will receive a mail-in ballot, regardless of whether they usually vote by mail in general elections or go to the polls. We want to provide every opportunity to SUSD residents to be informed about the election and have recruited Mr. Gadd, willingly of course, to share this information at these meetings in September. Lastly, turning to sports, the high school football season kicks off this week. Big games are on tap already. Coronado hosts Arcadia, Chaparral hosts Chandler Hamilton. Desert Mountain is away at Apollo, and Saguaro will be at home to Poston Butte. Other high school sports seasons get underway in the coming weeks are girls and boys golf, swim and dive, cross country, girls volleyball, and girls badminton. At the middle schools, it's boys baseball and girls volleyball season, all leading up to Saturday's September 7th Fall Festival, during which we expect between 700 and 800 students, middle school students, to compete in Tier 1 competition at baseball fields, gyms, and parks around the district. The festival schedule will be posted on middle school and K-8 school websites as soon as it is finalized. These festivals are a celebration of trying a sport for perhaps the first time for many youngsters, learning new skills and making new friends. And they're open to all students, from beginners, learning, for example, how to spike a volleyball for the first time, to those who may have some baseball experience and know how to hit the cutoff man. All students are encouraged to try out, but most of all, to have fun. The competitive Tier 2 season begins the week following the festival. We wish all of our SUSD teams well in their upcoming seasons and know they will follow our athletic motto of fostering a culture of sportsmanship, respect, and character. The sad news that we have to report is on Saturday, late Saturday afternoon, we lost a senior at Desert Mountain High School in a one-car accident. The saddest thing that we all, as adults in this room, face is the death of a loved one who is younger, especially a young person who has great future in front of him or her. And in this case, we all mourn for that family. If I may, I would like to have a moment of silence in memory of Christian Nelson. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Creekard. We move now to our public comments. This is a call for public comment for non-agenda items and consent agenda items. These may be brought to the governing board's attention under this section of the agenda. Due to Arizona open meeting law, the governing board cannot discuss or take action on items not listed on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, and one person cannot give his or her time to another to increase the number of minutes an individual may speak. For items listed on the agenda as information and discussion items or action items, the public will be afforded an opportunity to comment on those items as they come up. Sandra, do I have all of the cards submitted? Okay, our first public comment is from Edmund Richard.
Good day, board members, Superintendent Creekard, Mrs. Sandra Cuomo. As a parent in this district for well over a decade and a citizen of the city of Scottsdale for, well, way too long, I'm about to turn 50, so give you sort of a hint there. I have found throughout my professional and personal life, it is very difficult to stay calm and rational when there are critical issues to be addressed and they get pushed aside. Dr. Creekard, you and I have had several meetings. I have sent dozens of emails for over a span of which goes at least 9 months regarding a simple issue of a crosswalk at Tonalea K-8 school. I understand you did not create the issue, but sadly you have to resolve it. Now, after all these meetings, I saw more finger pointing and playing the game hot potato than I've ever seen in my life. I am certain all the teachers in SUSD do not tolerate that when children simply blame each other. The famous cartoon from Family Circus is the character, not me. I did not know SUSD hired that person. So, after reaching out to a greater public and with the apparent magical work of Board President Beckman, apparently the city of Tempe started to do something. Unfortunately, as you read the email string, it seems like this was the first time it was ever mentioned. Now, whether or not these two governmental bodies are going to spend time pointing fingers and lying is not my concern. What is my concern are the students. Right now, I sent you guys a schedule because I will not believe a crosswalk until it's actually painted there and I see signs. And I expect someone in the district to take ownership of that and communicate to the community about that. Because if you think the crosswalk is the only issue we're suffering from, you're sadly mistaken. Remember, I'm also the guy who lives around the fenced-in dead grass. Yeah, the Tonalea property is 68th and Oak. I'm also the person who doesn't have a middle school because of the wonderful Tonalea K-8 creation, which leads to what? I have constantly emailed you guys and women. At this point, I'm really wondering, does anyone actually read this? Or do I need to go on CNN and say, look, this is the sad state of Scottsdale. Look at all these emails. I am certainly they'll need a forklift to bring in all the documentation. Please don't make me do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Janie Ledyard. Did I say that right?
Okay, my name is Janie Ledyard, Arcadia class of 19, well, let's just say last century, former SUSD teacher and parent to 2 students currently at Arcadia. Arcadia was I'm just gonna go super fast. Arcadia was already over-enrolled before the last-minute decision was made by Dr. Sakos to offer enrollment to an additional 120 plus students. I'd like to talk about the impact this decision is having on our teachers and students. Instead of having adequate staffing prepared for balanced classes with students placed correctly the first day of school, it was a mad scramble to enroll students and stuff them into classes. For a district whose slogan is "Learning begins the first day," Dr. Sakos' decision made sure that this was not going to happen at our school. There has been a complete lack of transparency from the district in regards to numbers and information. Information that does come out has been at times false and has been conveniently spun. We learned today an additional 6 sections were added, although none affecting the freshman level classes. These changes were asked for by Mr. Stevens the first week of school, and yet they won't go into effect until the 14th day. The delay is unacceptable. The positions are being filled with teachers that are taking 6/5 contracts, so they won't have a planning period the rest of the year. Our teachers are excellent, but research consistently shows that the quality of education drops with this schedule and workload. This is a short-term solution for a long-term problem. We want solutions. Let's talk numbers for a minute, or I'll do that last because I'm not talking fast enough. We have an amazing staff at Arcadia. We are lucky, but their workload is too much for them, and these decisions are going to impact our student. It's clear, it's time that we have clear board policies regarding enrollment, timing, capacity, process, and class sizes. We should never find ourselves in this position starting the school year again, wondering, how did this happen? Let's talk about the TEA. It's time to reinstate the TEA and bring teachers' voices back to the table. They are our students' best advocates in this process, and they deserve a vote and a voice. Their voices have been missing, and the reinstatement should be a priority this year. When I was a teacher in the district, we had open enrollment contracts with the students. Right now, the only way you lose your open enrollment status is through expulsion. Why can't this change? Tardies, attendance, behavior, and academics should be factors in continued enrollment. It is a privilege, not a right, to maintain enrollment in our district. Stop using Arcadia students and their education to balance the district budgets. We know that this happens. Please stop doing it. I use the example of toothpaste. You've squeezed all the toothpaste out of the tube. There's no way to get it back in this year. Instead of letting it harden, which we all know is really hard to clean up out of the sink, let's start cleaning up the problem right now. Please don't wait another day to make staffing decisions for our students this year. They deserve a good education. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Cindy, I don't want to butcher your name. Cindy Krawcheck? I thought so.
Good evening. My name is Cindy Krawcheck. I'm the current Arcadia co-president, and I have 4 kids that are second-generation Hopi, Ingleside, and Arcadia students. I have a junior, a 6th grader, and twins that are in the 4th grade. I'd like to ask that as a new capacity study for Arcadia is completed, that we move away from inaccurate and dated reports that are based solely on square footage. The one number that we should look at, one of the main, in my opinion, is class size. Class size needs to be 33 students. That is what voters want and why voters continually pass overrides. We don't want an average of 36.4 or 37. We want a maximum class size of 33. We need to look at other factors when determining our capacity, things like safety, traffic, parking, books, desks, number of classrooms, bathrooms, capacity of our one lunchroom at Arcadia, staff to student ratio. Students should not start their first day of school without a desk or a book, but that's what happened at Arcadia this year. Another specific area that needs to be addressed in a capacity study is our feeder schools. Currently, the only schools being accounted for are Ingleside and Echo Canyon. It is reckless to not look at numbers from Veritas, Christ Lutheran, and St. Teresa. We need to look at our current student body and see where our students are coming from. If we have over 50% enrollment from private schools that are middle schools and their home schools Arcadia, we need to start looking at those middle schools as part of our feeder program. Also, given the current economic climate, it must also be a consideration that more neighborhood families might be returning to their home public schools. instead of continuing on to private high schools. Our kids are more than a number to throw into a square footage equation. This district must do better. We seem to create our own crisis by not updating and reviewing practices. It is far past time for a thoughtful review of SUSD's open enrollment policy, and it's critical that new policies be put in place at the governing board level to ensure that all schools are in compliance. The blueprints for these changes are all around us. Most districts seem to be far ahead of SUSD on this. Instead of being in a constant state of reaction, let's be proactive. Arcadia is our neighborhood school. It's a community school, a school that families continue to move back to the area to attend. We are not a commuter school, and we are not a piggy bank for the district. Arcadia is not an airline that can be overbooked and flights rescheduled. We are a neighborhood school. Please don't continue to gamble with a numbers game with our kids' lives.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, Trisha Longnecker.
Hi, my name is Trisha Longnecker, and I'm a mother of a freshman and a junior, and I'm the PTO president this year with Cindy. My children attended Great Hearts through 8th grade, so I've not been around long to experience the trouble that we're having with Scottsdale Unified School District, so this is all new to me. Taking the job as PTO president, I look forward to focusing on the fun and rewarding parts, and that's appreciating our teachers and staff. And unfortunately, that's not what's happening, and I never in a million years would think I'm standing here in this room worried about my child's education and our wonderful little neighborhood school. So let me try to get through this without getting upset. So safety is a huge issue on our campus. As you guys are aware, we had a break-in just, 10 days ago? We've had no information, no one has been arrested. What scares the bejesus out of, I'm going not off my script, what scares us to death is that how do we know someone's not hiding in the school, someone's not having a bomb threat or bringing something that's not safe? Parents are very worried about this and no one's addressed it. Also, some other things to talk about are, we're not concerned about a fire at our school. We have fire drills, that's not a problem. We're worried about the congestion in our hallways and in the stairwells. If you go at a pass period, the idea of getting 1,900 students into a safe classroom is terrifying. It's terrifying, and to lock that door. And to make matters worse, the 5th and 6th contracts, we would use those teachers on their off periods to help organize a crisis. We're not going to have those teachers they're going to be worried about their own classroom. So that's another thing that needs to be addressed. And class size, 33 is the number. I mean, I don't understand, why can't you stay within that number? The vagueness regarding class size is an issue and building angst within our community. It's not a range, it's a number. It's unsettling to know the district uses day 10 and 40 historical data to determine students' counts and staff needs. This tells me SUSD is comfortable allowing school to start without enough desks, books, and an way excessive amount of schedule changing within the first, now 3 weeks of school. I hope that everyone in this room can agree that school starts day one, learning starts day one. And to this Yes to the Children's campaign, we say no to overcrowding. The last override reduced class sizes. The override this year is asking to keep class sizes at the current level. Is that correct? That's what I'm reading. Overrides passed because of community support. Arcadia is historically a community that votes, and votes in favor of school bonds and overrides. The entire Arcadia complex voters at large are the strongest yes vote area in the district. Overrides passed because of our community support. Sure, SUSD will get more money with more students attending, but at what cost? Is it worth the millions lost if an override campaign fails? At this point, sorry. SUSD is stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. And our kids aren't pennies, and they're not dollars. They're human beings. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Linda Schlenker.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Linda Schlenker. I'm the mother of 2 Arcadia graduates as well as a current senior. Our 3 children are second generation Arcadia, and our senior will be the 7th member of our family to graduate from Arcadia High School. We have lived up the street from Arcadia for over 20 years, and I would like to address parking and traffic. Another consequence of filling Arcadia beyond what it was designed for is this is the first time we haven't had enough parking for juniors. Many parents were counting on their juniors being able to transport themselves to and from school and had no reason to plan for something different until just prior to the start of school. A great deal of these families have 2 working parents, children at multiple schools, and it was a tremendous shock to learn on the Friday before school started that they now had to find a different way at the last minute to get their kids to school, or for their students to find a new way to get to and from work and sports, or pick up siblings on other campuses. Now that we have such a large open enrollment population, many of these families are not within walking and biking distance from the school and are needing to commute in. Arcadia was designed to be a community school, not a commuter school. Making this parking decision last minute just prior to school has been extremely disruptive to students and their families and does not appear to be well thought out or with any consideration to community input. In addition to the parking shortage due to over-enrollment, we also have a major traffic problem during drop-off and pickup. Arcadia has only 2 points of entry and exit, and both are on major thoroughfares, 44th Street and Indian School. One student timed his commute from 40th Street less than a half of a mile, and it took him 22 minutes to make the drive. This congestion is not only a burden to the families trying to get their children to school, but to the entire community every morning trying to get to work. It also has created a safety issue on both Indian School and 44th Street. In an effort to get to school on time, we literally have children getting out of cars right on Indian School, and we have children jaywalking. On 44th Street, we do not have extra warnings to alert drivers that there is a stoplight there, resulting in frequent red light runners. We also do not have adequate signage on 44th Street to alert drivers that it is a school zone and children will be crossing. I have been told that we have already had a child on a bicycle hit by a car. All of the excessive traffic caused by over-enrollment makes this all the more dangerous. I think it would be naive to think that these kids without parking permits are just not going to drive. These are the same neighborhoods that were promised during the rebuild that our school population would remain consistent with our space, that kids wouldn't be parking in neighborhoods and the Safeway Plaza, but it's exactly what's happened. Had there been planning, thoughtfulness, and community input, the summer could have been spent finding ways to create more parking spots as there is much wasted space, and there could have been an opportunity to rethink letting in so many more students at the last minute when we already don't have the proper resources for the current enrollment. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Roth?
Hello, Dr. Creekard and the governing board. My name is Susan Rahoff. I'm the Arcadia PTO treasurer, and I'm also an office volunteer. I have 2 boys at Arcadia, a junior and a freshman. And I just want to speak quickly about how overworked and strained our office and counseling staff are. I was volunteering in the office. I answer phones, greet people, help. I was there the second day of school after the letters went out to the 120 additional students, and I can tell you it was nothing short of chaotic when Vianney Garcia, our registrar, she has her schedule, and it's an appointment after appointment after appointment of people coming in. She couldn't take a lunch break. And here's what I know. I know that students, in the spirit of the open enrollment law, were coming in without all of their paperwork, and so they're allowed to enroll. The counselors put them in classes before they have all of their documentation. And then Vianney Garcia, our one registrar with no support, has to follow up and call other schools, get transcripts, follow up and get documentation that the parents should have with them when they enroll their students. So there's that issue. There's also Nancy DiCarlo, our main secretary. She is and she also is the counseling office admin. She is also doing attendance because after our main attendance gal took another position, we have had three attendance people, and they have all left. So we have our counselors and office staff are stretched to the max. We have moms that come volunteer every day from 9 to 1 to answer phones and greet people. If we did not have volunteers, we would have one person, Nancy DiCarlo, managing the office. In my opinion, and all of our friends over here, our moms and parents, that is unacceptable in our opinion. And the open enrollment, the over-enrollment situation has just created a really chaotic environment for our counselors and our staff. And we just need more help if that's what you're going to do to our school. Thank you.
Thank you. Lance Rahoff.
Hey, thanks for allowing me to speak. Susan's my wife. Lance Rahoff. I've been in the Arcadia neighborhood for about 25 years. I've volunteered with Young Life. I have two boys that are a junior and a freshman, but I feel like I've had hundreds of kids that have graduated through Arcadia over the years. My house backed up to the chain link fence before the remodel, and kids would jump our house for spaghetti lunches on Fridays. And I felt like I experienced Arcadia community for these years, met so many teachers and great administrators, and I am so thankful for who we have. And I want to see us keep really good people. And my concern with overcrowding is the stress on teachers. Even the most effective teachers can be quite overwhelmed with excessive class sizes. We've seen it. Susan and I go and meet with teachers one-on-one, and we talk. And more than just talk about, oh, what's our son learning? We always ask, how are you doing? How can we pray for you? How can we support you? Because we want to be the kind of parents where teachers go, they're for us, and administrators go, they're for us. And so we want to do what we can, but I know that overcrowding creates stress in the classroom, and we already know that our students are stressed to the max. Social media, all the things that are happening in the world, and they come into a class size where disruptions are more than they need to be, just because of class size alone, that can be the case. But we want to see students succeed and be set up for success. We know that you do as well. I know that I'm not telling you anything that you go, yeah, we want to see that too. So my hope and encouragement to you would be that you're planning already for next year. This year is happening. It's going. Let's take these things into consideration for next year and not just have good thoughts and good processes, but be really intentional about how this is going to be set up for next year. I just wanted to say that I am so thankful that we're in the Scottsdale School District and thankful for you. You have a tremendous responsibility. And I know that with a social worker, I had the opportunity to do Teach One to Lead One last year at Arcadia. It is a fantastic program. I'd love to see it in all the high schools, but right now I think 3 of the high schools have it. But about 40 kids that are at risk, are they even going to make it through the school? Through a senior year or even through that current year, we want to encourage them to know what leadership is. And I got to interact with social workers in that process. Oh my goodness, what they have the responsibility of doing and processing in real life, family and home and situations in the classroom and injustices that have come against them, it's overwhelming. So to keep a larger group of people that is even necessary or that is the capacity for them at Arcadia seems like that is not a good way to set us up for success in the future. Thanks.
Thank you. Annie Ray?
Good evening. My name is Annie Ray, and I am the parent of an Arcadia graduate and 2 current students. Like so many Arcadia parents, we bought our house in the Arcadia attendance area over 20 years ago with the intention of staying here until our yet-to-be-born children graduated from Arcadia High School. In 2005, when we started at Hopi, it was a very neighborhood-based school with little traffic. Arcadia's attendance was around 1,250, and we were thrilled that our children would attend smaller neighborhood schools. Arcadia was about to be rebuilt with a promise from district administration to the community that enrollment would never exceed 1,500. Open enrollment was year to year and based on available seats in each grade. Then we witnessed Hopi's over-enrollment using open enrollment. Our neighborhood school was packed beyond capacity. We could no longer allow our children to walk to school because of dangerous traffic and overly aggressive drivers, many from outside of our community who were not vested in our neighborhoods. The overwhelming backlash from Hopi parents eventually resulted in the school capacity being decreased when it was rebuilt and stricter open enrollment rules put in place. In 2011, our oldest was embarrassed to be attending Ingleside and was often teased about it. The administration admittedly felt that their job was just to get kids through, not to provide them with an education. But instead of leaving Ingleside, we committed to improving it. Parents demanded change, and with much effort and support, it happened. Within a few years, Ingleside was revived, thriving, and was once again the school of choice in our community. In 2014, when we started at Arcadia, the principal was new and open enrollment had moved from being centralized to site-based. This resulted in an increase in open enrollment, and overall enrollment increased dramatically. Our daughter had 46 students in her English 1 honors class. Parents sprang into action again. We had meeting after meeting with district administration who agreed to set our open enrollment cap at 1,700. It was a promise that we believed would be honored moving forward. The 1,700 cap was an improvement, but still 200 students over the 1,500 maximum that had been promised to our community. Now in 2019, our administration has again changed. Our parents many, many times have let the new administration know of past over-enrollment problems and the promise that Arcadia's cap was set at 1,700. This year, our enrollment the first week of school was 1,928. And our parents are here again to state again that this is completely unacceptable. Please understand, our families have made major life decisions based on promises from district administration. And unlike our board members and our district and school administration, our presence here is constant and unwavering. We are loyal and committed parents. We actively advocate for our district and for quality education within our schools. We support our schools with thousands of volunteer hours and financial support well into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. We pass overrides at a greater margin than any other complex in the district. But we are tired of being the cash cow of SUSD. We are tired that promises made regarding enrollment are vacated over and over again. The repeated actions of district and school administration that result in the diminished quality of our students' education and the lack of services and facilities to serve all students are simply unacceptable.
Thank you. Jennifer Sheedy?
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Sheedy. I am also an Arcadia High School alumni. My parents had at least one kid at Arcadia from 1976 to 1997. So we love Arcadia, raised in Arcadia High School. Hopi, Ingleside, Arcadia legacy. I have a freshman daughter there this year. So very, very excited for her to start her high school career at Arcadia, but I was incredibly dismayed that there were over 500 kids in her class. There's well over 600 actually. She said to me on the second day, she literally said, I don't know how these teachers are going to manage all of these kids in the class. She's 14. In class, kids sitting all over the floor, no books, no desks. Great way to start high school. It's really disappointing. They see it, and it's creating a lot of anxiety. The kids are worried about how much access they're going to have to their teachers. So I guess as of today, just a few hours ago, the district has added 6 new sessions. I know the number is 33 that we would like to see. 33 is not a small class. So the teachers are going to be taking on yet another period, so they have no free periods at maximum, 33 kids. It's their only planning period. They won't have time to plan lessons. They won't have time to do any grading. They definitely won't have any time to see kids needing extra help. The teachers are stressed out. We've got a great staff, but it's too much pressure on them, and the kids as well. So this will also mean probably fewer essay tests because they take so much longer to grade. Maybe a tendency to use tests that have been used in the past with a higher possibility of answers that have been circulated among the kids. The district takes the extra kids in for the extra money, but now these teachers are going to be paid, and what I've heard just in the last couple of hours, $10,000 for each extra section 6, so that's $60,000 that now the district has to pay out. But it's not just adding a couple of extra classes. We need extra support and extra staff across all layers, like security, as was mentioned. It's just not only at sports events, and other events, but through every school day. How about the counselors? How are the kids supposed to get any FaceTime with their counselors with this number? Over 600 kids make a plan for their high school career and beyond. It's really frustrated. So forget the parking mess, because there is a parking mess. I don't have time to go in the drop-off pickup nightmare at Arcadia. The freshmen are eating outside because there's no room and there's not enough shade, there's not enough seats, 115 degrees today. The schedules now this week on Thursday when it starts are going to be annihilated again and it's district driven, not student driven. So I hope that the district will stop using Arcadia as its piggy bank. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Davy Erblich?
I'm Ann Davy Erblich. Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm not a long-term Arcadia resident, and something that was struck by when I walked into this campus today was, wow, this is a really nice campus. It's very clean, it's very fresh, and coming from not around here, when the first time I walked into Arcadia High School, I was shocked at how unkempt it was, how dirty, how there were things all over the campus that I thought needed to be improved, and that was 3 years ago, and it hasn't really changed. A couple of the things that I see when I walk on campus are termites are in the auditorium, Wi-Fi doesn't work across the campus, the bathrooms, textbooks, classrooms, the desks, they're broken, they're falling apart, security sensors have fallen off, alarm lines have been cut, there are corroding stairwells, the strips on the stairwells that are actually supposed to help you from not slipping are gone. There is a lack of seats and shade for lunch. I have a freshman daughter, and I asked her today, I said, where do you sit down for lunch? She said, Mom, I don't sit down. Why? There are no seats. And I said to her, is there shade? And she said, sort of. And I said to her, is it humane? Can you imagine asking your high school daughter if her lunch situation is humane? Other things I'm seeing are faded parking lots, faded directional signs, potholes. We have a building called Mount Olympus. It's the only original Arcadia building, and the outside of it still needs exterior repairs. We have been told by the district that our school campus is adequate. I don't understand how that's adequate. This is adequate. Why are district standards not standard across all schools? Our students are being encouraged to help our school receive an A rating. And when they go into class every day, it's like when you walk into a boardroom to make a presentation, you want to look your best, you want to feel your best. Our students are walking into a boardroom situation every day when they go into class to do a test or a presentation. And when they look around, they see a faltering campus. So they don't see the pride that they should be instilled in them to walk in and do their best academically. Thank you.
Thank you. Carrie Schulman?
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak for a couple of minutes. May I just ask of our board members, how many of you are parents? Everybody's parents? How many of you were ever a teacher? So just one. Okay. I'll get back to that in a minute. So I am the proud parent of an Arcadia graduate. I had a son who went to Brophy, and I have a son who is a junior at Arcadia. My son went to Brophy because he would have drowned at Arcadia. The class sizes are too big. There's no control in those classrooms. It's ridiculous. So we paid $16,000 a year when we live in district and pay taxes to send our son to a private school. That's unacceptable. My other two kids are thriving. They've done great. One's graduated. She's off to college. The other one is a junior, and I just pray every day he gets through it. You sit and you talk about how proud you are of the fact that we are only 21 students down from your goal of open enrollment. And I say shame on you. Shame on you for allowing so many open enrollment students to come into Arcadia. I challenge each one of you to go on campus Visit with our administrators and our counselors and our teachers and sit in on those classes. You will be appalled. And if you don't do it, you're not doing your jobs. That's your job. That's why we elected you. We have wonderful administrators, but they are new. Our principal never was an administrator in a high school. Our other administrators don't have high school experience. So you've put into our school brand new green administrators with no high school experience. That is a disservice to our community and our students. Our staff is overwhelmed. Now we're talking about changing and shuffling classes again. My kid's settled. He's been in school this is his 3rd week. You're gonna rip out his routine and reshuffle the deck and make him start over? That is not acceptable. Not one of you who is a parent who's sitting on that board would think that that was acceptable for your child. You wouldn't, or you wouldn't be on a school board. You guys need to start paying attention. You need to start doing your jobs. Help us. We are asking for your help. We elect you to help us, not to take down and overcrowd our schools and overburden our teachers. $10,000 to take on another class? You couldn't pay me enough money to be a teacher in that school right now. Please take the time, get over to that school, visit, help them. Our counselors, right now at Arcadia, we have 4 counselors, 1,900 students. 1 counselor has 475 students.
Thank you. Rebecca Clayton?
Hi, my name is Rebecca Clayton. I'm a mother of 2 current Arcadia High School students. I am also a local neighborhood realtor. I've lived and worked in the neighborhood for the past 20 years. I've seen the market go up and go down, as well as change with expansion. But one thing that has always been a large selling feature of the neighborhood is the schools, especially Arcadia High School. Families move into the area looking and seeking out homes within the specific boundaries so that they know that their children are guaranteed a strong education within a small high school environment. They're willing to pay more for their homes because of it. I wonder what the impact on our property values will be if we continue with these high enrollment numbers. We need to be prepared for the growth also. The homes were originally built in the 1950s. They're being torn down and new ones are being built. They're being filled with young, vibrant families with young children. Did you know that right now there are 60 new homes being built in Arcadia proper? That's Camelback to Indian School, 68th Street to 44th Street. They will be filled with families, and we need to be ready to educate them to the best of our abilities. I worry that we will lose the support of our very special families, and let's make sure that we set ourselves up for success and not failure.
Thank you. Chris Ambry.
Good evening, Dr. Creekard, President Beckman, members of the board, and Sandra. I am Chris Ambry, and I'm proud to be the Scottsdale Education Association president again this year. I've given Sandra some copies for you all of our theme for this school year, one that shows when the Scottsdale Unified School District community and Scottsdale Education Association members work together, the result is teaching excellence and student success. With the override election fast approaching, we see an opportunity for our community to come together and support public education. The great things currently happening in our district and all of the great things that will happen in the future with the passage of this override. Key is together. Yes to Children has reached out to SEA, recognizing our value to this district, and we look forward to partnering with them. No matter how many years we've been in education, there's a uniqueness about the start of each school year. Pencils are still full length and plentiful. There's still paper by the copy machine, And each and every original little face in a new day full of students brings that breath of fresh air, that feeling of excitement about the time you'll spend together. True hope for the future. As we begin this new school year, I still have hope that our hardworking, loyal, and student-centered Scottsdale Education Association will again be a full-fledged partner with the Scottsdale Unified School District. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Keith Zolman.
Sorry, it's like a foot extra I need. Okay. Hi, my name's Keith Zolman. I've got kids at Hopi Elementary. They're very young, so I'll be with you guys for a long time. I am delighted by smart, talented children. There's a whole lot of them at Hopi. It's very cool to see. I haven't been here for a while, so I wanted to come and say I'm very happy with the direction that the school board in this district is going. There's plenty to do, of course. I'm thrilled that Dr. Creekard is here for a little bit longer, which is very exciting. I'm actually even happy about the giant Big Brother clock. It's actually a lot better than like the... We still do the cards, it looks like, which is too bad. We should get rid of those. This is good. I'm proud that my kids are going to go through the track to go to Arcadia. Arcadia is a great school. My kid's grandmother went there. I remember when I first came to Arizona, we saw that, and I'm like, wow, we got to go there. So my wife was right. This was the place to be. I know that we as a district are competing with private schools, charter schools. That's kind of an issue. So we have this really big rebuild thing going on. It's very expensive, lots of money spent. I can tell you as an architect, a designer, a contractor, that when you need to consolidate and you have to focus your efforts, it's best to do things very well. Not just a lot of stuff everywhere. Do it very well and focus. And so it is my opinion that related to that, Hopi needs a comprehensive gifted program from K through 5. This was something that was stirring around a little bit. I remember somebody in this room said something about a rising tide lifts all boats. I remember that, yes. I agree completely. I think that's very, very important. Speaking to Dr. Wong about it the last couple of years, what she had said was that one of the primary concerns is that there's not enough room at Hopi. And I was like, how did that happen? This is a functional problem. That's not an endemic problem. It's just functional. You need more space, right? I also remember that back when the board voted on GMP number 2, there was a little tiny move in there that sliced off 4 classrooms that were on the north side of the building, of the classroom building. That was originally where the 5th graders were going to go. Guess where they are now? They're in the admin building. They're not administrators, they're students. Those classrooms where the 5th graders were going to go was for other fun stuff. That was the original plan sold to our little district. So I request, humbly, respectfully, please initiate procurement to get 4 more classrooms put on the north side of the building so we can start a comprehensive gifted program so that we can lift all of the boats all the way up to the Titans. I think that's worth doing. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, we move now to our information and discussion items, starting with 7A, Cherokee Elementary School Rebuild Design. Dr. Creekard,
Thank you, President Beckman. I'm going to introduce Mr. Dennis Rayler, our Director of Building Services, who will then introduce the representatives from Orchid Winslow. Dennis.
Good evening, President Beckman, members of the board, Dr. Creekard, and Sandra. We actually have 2 items today to talk to you about. One is Cherokee and the work that we've done there in preparation for a rebuild. And then a little bit later, we'll be coming back to you to talk about Hohokam and the work that we've been doing over there in preparation of a decision to either rebuild, remodel, or something in between. So without further ado, Tom O'Neill with Orchid Winslow, and each member of his team, as they come up and speak, they'll introduce themselves. but Tom will get us started.
Thank you, Dennis. Let's get the tray out here. Board President, Governing Board, Superintendent, we're pleased tonight to give you an update on the design for Cherokee. With me tonight, we have Scott Sawinski, our design architect, Fatima Garcia, our project manager, John Thomason with Core Construction, and Walton Paul from the school, principal and vice principal. So in the process of design and construction, we're about 80% design complete. We'll be submitting to the city for regulatory review on October 19th. We'll be coming back to you on December 3rd for a guaranteed maximum price approval or discussion. The process has been collaborative and transparent. It's a process that we've had 6 community meetings, the last of which was Monday night. This is a presentation that is condensed from Monday night's presentation, but the full presentation will be posted on the district website for everybody's acknowledgement. The first step we did in the community engagement was to define memorable goals. We felt it was very important to define what the community would like to see as an outcome in this design. We also went not only to the community, we went down to the students and staff of the school. We felt that was important. We got some really interesting feedback from the students. They created collages and communicate to us what they would like to see in their school replacement. So ultimately, we came up with 4 memorable goals we felt was important to focus on with this design, and it should resonate at the completion of the school. These 4 are safety and wellness, uniquely Cherokee, student-centric learning, and high-performance learning environment. The second community engagement meeting, we did an exercise that we call World Cafe, where the community articulated relationships within the school and outside the school and into the community. Very important to understand the interrelationships that were necessary with so many special programs at this school. We did what we call a charrette, and we did multiple levels with the visionary group, with the community, with our own staff, and with the leads in the district. This was an exercise to develop a design that we could extract from some great vignettes or great ideas. It wasn't to get the ultimate solution in that exercise. It was to generate some ideas that ultimately we come back and assemble a concept for renovation or replacement, and then through metrics determine whether which would be our recommendation. So the renovation design that we ultimately came to is illustrated here. We brought this to the board with a recommendation not to renovate, but to replace. And this is the replacement concept at that early stage of design, about 20% complete, that ironically reflects pretty strongly what we will share with you tonight as the ultimate design solution. We did the recommendation based on metrics. It wasn't passion, it wasn't aesthetics, it was metrics. We felt it was very important to have a solid basis for this recommendation because it is a big and important move. So with that, we move forward with the replacement concept, and Scott's going to talk a little bit about the design solution that we came up with. Scott?
Thank you, Tom. So as we embarked on the journey of finding out what Cherokee 2.0 was going to be, we wanted to look at the context both locally there, but then also culturally. And so what was uniquely Cherokee prior is what we're trying to create as Cherokee 2.0 is garden and courtyard style campuses that are currently there, and the collaboration pods that are the center of the hexagons. And it's Arizona's first literary landmark, as well as its simple and clean mid-century modern aesthetics. The strategies that we used moving forward in the design were Cherokee as a nurse plant, the connection to nature through biophilia, outdoor learning and modern curriculum delivery, and mid-century modern aesthetics. What we mean by Cherokee as a nurse plant is we looked at the Sonoran context, and the growth chart of a saguaro starts very slowly, and by maybe 10, 20 years, it's only the size of your thumb, and they look for shelter underneath Palo Verde and mesquite trees, which we looked at as a strong metaphor to the students that will use Cherokee as their nurse plant. This campus is supposed to protect the cycle and rhythm of growth, play, and learning, and the design reflects this. Ways that we've incorporated strategies to accomplish this are through biophilic design. There are 14 patterns on this slide that express on the left side the pattern, and then the stress reduction, cognitive performance improvements, emotional and mood preference improvements through white paper studies to help express how this helps the students. In addition, we looked at Sonoran Desert context, and a lot of the ideas that are represented on this slide are in the design as it states. The self-shading cacti is a very sustainable green way of designing the facade, and the shade is important to provide opportunities of learning outdoors. Your new Cherokee Elementary is meant to celebrate that Cherokee 2.0 message as an outdoor and indoor learning environment. To orient you as the design is taking shape, the existing solar and bus loop on the left side of the screen is 56th Street. The perimeter of the site is surrounded by residential on the other three. The campus, as it currently sits, is where the Cherokee History and Parking sign is on the top left. The campus is going to be built to the south of this. I'm going to hop through some of the renderings. This is the pre-K entry, bus drop-off and pickup. I should mention these are artistic renderings and are subject to change. I want to make a note that we're depicting full mature trees at time of opening the school. Likely they're not going to be this large. However, what we want to do is get across the vision of what we're trying to accomplish. The current campus has quite a few special areas between buildings that we're trying to replicate. The emphasis on the design is not necessarily what's happening in the buildings, but what's happening throughout the buildings, what's in between the buildings, etc. Play, outdoors, learning outdoors can translate easily within the design and layout of the campus. As a brief explanation of the campus layout, there are 4 buildings. This is a reaction to that campus and courtyard style request from the community. The classroom buildings are to the south, with the administration and multipurpose building at the northern portion of the campus. Briefly, the administration building houses the main admin suite and some pull-out classes, as well as art and media. The multipurpose building houses PE, cafeteria, vocal band, and a 2-sided platform that can open both to the outside as well as an all-school assembly inside. And again, very important in the design was the collaboration pods, which are reflected in this drawing as pods on the ends of the design. This is the reaction to having the clusters of age groups to have project-based learning and teaching opportunities. And each pod is age-driven, K, 1, 2, 3, etc. I want to isolate just the first grade pod. This is what that collaboration pod looks like outside. The design has an overhead door that will open up on both sides to allow indoor-outdoor connection there. And then these icons can represent at what temperatures, how far out you can get out into that sun to enjoy the outdoor environments and connect those with curriculum. On that note, there are 3 major pods in the design. The K1 pod, we're looking at promoting specific biomes within these for landscape so that they provide opportunities for curriculum within each. Deciduous forest is one, chaparral is another, and lastly, tropical grassland. In addition, we've brought in multiple specialty consultants to help us bring value to the district in this design. First off, you noticed in an earlier rendering, we have a school bus sitting inside the building. This is not a mistake. Junie B. Jones is a very famous author, Barbara Park is a very famous author of the Junie B. Jones series, and Cherokee Elementary is at the root of the start of that story. And so we're bringing the stupid, smelly bus into the campus to celebrate that. And we'll be bringing that in from Scottsdale Unified's very own department, 2005 Thomas School Bus. We've engaged with Spectacle, a local maker company that's done a variety of things. They're not quite going to reach for this height at that bus, but we're looking at the interactive capabilities of that bus within the library space as a collaborative space and reading room. In addition, very important on those goals was security. So we went through a pretty vigorous planning effort to come through with a solid master plan for this. A summary of how this works on campus is a layered security system, perimeter security, and then limited points of entry. So the main security vestibule is at the building 100, which is the admin building, and then we have a secondary entry for the pre-K near parking. Parking is doubling in size almost, probably half again as large, to accomplish further or less congestion. Security cameras, RFID, all of the modern amenities that help us keep schools safe will be used in the project. We had a traffic impact analysis completed. In short, the before is on the left side, right side is after. So we've added 2 lanes of queuing and quadrupled the capacity to get as much capacity off of those surrounding streets and onto campus. And then lastly, we're making sure to be good stewards of the district's dollar as far as this building being a solid building for the next 50 years. And so we used findings to figure out how to make this the most efficient building possible. Did I run out of time? And lastly, sustainable strategies just beyond energy efficiency is energy, wellness, place, and materials. Amongst those 4 pillars for us were quite a few items that we wanted to push further in the design. I feel like I rushed through quite a bit of that, but I want to jump over to John Thomason with Core Construction to discuss phasing.
Good evening. I'll go fairly quick on this because this is very preliminary. We're looking at starting construction with board approval in December, and is obviously in phasing because we do have to keep the school moving. So our phase 1 would start in December. We would focus on the buildings on the south, the 2 classroom buildings. While school is in session, the most important thing we'd do would be segregate the kids for safety with fencing, working with Walt and Paul, and obviously James for security. That is our utmost priority. We will, slow construction down to make sure everybody is safe. The turnover for those 2 buildings, the classrooms, will be next August when school starts. That'll be phase 1. Starting then next summer, we will take over more of the campus and we will demo the classroom buildings as you see kind of in the middle and the existing multi-purpose room. We'll also be taking portion of the fields for our laydown area and our construction staging. We're showing quite a bit here. We do not believe we'll take that much. We'd rather be a little aggressive than not and ask for a little more up front. This will go through the July when we pretty much take over the entire campus, do as much work as we can in prepping while students are off. Then July through January, through the winter break, we will turn over the fields that will be now in the south, so the kids now have more playground to turn over to, and also the multi-purpose building will be turned over before spring semester starts in January. That way the admin has somewhere to move into, most likely temporary. Our goal, if we can, is to have admin at the same time, but with the amount of construction being an occupied campus, we want to make sure we set the expectations now that we can deliver what is needed. This is, we said, through December. I jumped ahead a little, showing building 200 complete the 1st of January in 2021, and then 100 admin possibly sliding a little, but we'd be able to put up temporary facilities in the multi-purpose. That allows both gym area and also the cafeteria to be done first when they come back to school. And then the final campus, Our final completed, our parking lot would be pretty much the last. We're hoping to complete that the same too, but depending on the layout, we may push that a little into it. Would be the full campus and no later than mid-February of '21. Thank you.
When we did the presentation on Monday, we offered the opportunity to do virtual reality. And it's kind of exciting where you can really get your head into the design of the facility and understand. We as architects look at drawings and we bring it in third dimension, but we understand the community doesn't have or may not have that ability or may have the ability. Nonetheless, in conclusion, what we'd like to say is thank you to Paul and Walt for their participation, but more importantly, the visionary group, 25 folks that Walt had assembled of neighbors, parents, and teachers who have been diligent in participating week after week on the development of this design. And they will be involved all the way through the dedication ribbon cutting. So with that, I'd like to open up for any questions.
Any questions from board members? Board Member Kravitz?
Oh, I just wanted to make the point that the board has seen this presentation before, so if we're not asking questions, it's because we've already asked them, and it's not due to lack of interest.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Board Member Beckham.
I'll just follow up with what Board Member Kravitz just said and ask that since we have had the opportunity, and this is the first time outside of Cherokee, correct? Because the Visionary Committee has seen it and then the community saw it about a week and a half ago, is to please go onto the SUSD website, go under the bond, click under that link, and then click under Cherokee, and you'll be able to see this information. Is that correct? And so if that's the case and you have any questions, where would you like the community members who are looking at it on the website, who should they contact if they have questions?
I guess that's me.
And your phone number
Tom
or
O'Neill with-
email is down on there so you can see.
We'll make sure that it is,
And
yes.
that we would get right back to the community. So we're very interested in hearing from the Cherokee community on your comments and thoughts. Thank you.
You know, it was interesting in our first meeting with the visionary group, we asked everybody in the room to state what their goal is to be there and what their role is in the community. And one of the neighbors said, our role here is to challenge that architect. Challenge him right here. And our response was, that's what we want. In this room right here, we want to be challenged. And as a result, we'll have a much better design. And I think it's played out really nicely in terms of the feedback, the challenge, and the results. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
So I think what I'd like to say before we go on to Hohokam is I would like to thank Tom and the Orchid Winslow people. The process of involving the community was so extensive. We wanted to make sure that we didn't make mistakes that had been made before. We wanted to make sure we knew that it was going to be a difficult build. The existing building, the layout of the land is very difficult. And so we knew there were going to be some tough decisions to make. They made those decisions, but with a great deal of community input and input from the staff. And I think that's important, the people who will live there, both the parents of the kids and the staff itself. So I want to let you know that we appreciate so much that you took the time that was necessary to get that input, so that we have neighbors that are now pleased with their challenge of you. And I think in the end we'll have a beautiful building that is very functional for the education of these young people. So thank you, Tom.
Well, thank you. And speaking for our team, we do appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Okay, we now move to our next information and discussion item, Hohokam Elementary School, our visioning update and feasibility study preview. Dennis?
Back again. So the Hohokam process is a little bit different architectural firm, but they are still going through this effort to make sure that the community is heard, that the teachers are heard. And so this project started about 5 to 6 months later than the Cherokee Orchid Winslow project. And so right now we're at the position where we're completing the feasibility study. We've had some visioning meetings. We've had 2 community meetings, and we're having a third on Thursday here at Coronado High School, since we've turned the air conditioning off over at Hohokam. And so the SPS Plus team is here to update you on their progress for their feasibility study and looking forward to some direction. Who's up first? Mr. Mark Davenport.
Thank you, Dennis. Board President, Governing Board, Superintendent, thank you for having us here tonight. I wanted to introduce my team. This is Neil Perrette and Darlene Cadman, and my name is Mark Davenport, and we're all with SPS Plus Architects. Darlene's got a short presentation prepared for you, and like the other one, you've seen it, and we're going to kind of show it again here today. Just kind of walking you through a little bit what we've been working on with the Hohokam community over the last couple months. So with that, Darlene.
Okay, thanks. Good evening. I'd like to also just say thanks. I see that Principal Rantala is here. He's been a great help to us all the way along. There's our lovely pictures. There we go. He's been a great help to us all the way along, and for his people who also showed up to help deliver flyers for the meeting tonight. So hopefully that got the word out. We got a few more people here, I think. Anyways, I'm going to keep this short because, again, we did present this once before. But generally speaking, Hohokam Elementary School, we're familiar with it as a Ralph Haver design, and that it has significant impact on the local community. So much so that we have taken a much slower sort of process and more engaged process with the community. With the Haver design, and we're familiar with the breeze block, some of the pictures here. We're familiar with the deep overhangs on the site, and also some of the other Haver designs within the Phoenix area. We have toured actually both the Phoenix College Science Building, and we went to St. Vincent de Paul School, or church, pardon me, as well, to see the impact of other projects within this area. And also on the Phoenix College project specifically was an adaptive reuse, and how they maintained a significant amount of the Haver design while using it in a very different way. So there are sort of three processes that we've gone through. There's the community process, the visioning process, and then also the facility evaluation. The community outreach, we had a wonderful team. We had, of course, Principal Rantala and his people, ourselves, and Dennis and some of his people helping us out. And now we also have Chase Building team, who's also here tonight, to help us out with this process. The first community meeting we had was a new process for us in that we used the Mentimeter survey. That Mentimeter survey allowed us to poll everybody in the audience in a live fashion, and they were interacting with their phones. Some of the most interesting results of that were we threw out some questions like, how would you describe the culture of Hohokam Elementary School? We got some great words in this particular word art: supportive, caring, and fun. We also asked if, and we asked this at the first meeting, if you were to choose modernizing the existing campus, renovating and building some new, or building completely new, the entire community actually voted primarily for the renovate portions of the school and build new within that. The second community meeting, it paralleled what we were working with on the visioning team at that time. And with the visioning team, we had done several exercises, which I'll get into, but we paralleled them with the community meeting. We had 3 stations that the community traveled through and worked at each one, providing us input in terms of photographic inspiration. What are the sort of learning spaces that are exciting and interesting to you? These are the ones that actually got the most votes. The second station looked at different floor plans that had various options on how you could either be in a more traditional environment, or on the other end of the spectrum, an extremely open classroom and environment, or somewhere in the middle where you had a mixture of both. The third station actually really dug into the idea that if we are working on this campus and we are looking at potentially adaptive reuse with some new construction, are all these buildings supposed to stay? Are we seeing that there are the potential for some of these buildings to need to be rebuilt? Are there any areas that maybe we would look at differently? And where we had a community group coming in at the beginning of the meeting saying, save the Haver and save everything on the site, there was some recognition for sure, and some progress that showed people see that there are some things that aren't working on the site. The location of the administration building, the multi-purpose space, and its use. So some of those areas actually, the community looked at the orange block in the picture, which is to bring in some new construction in that. So paralleling the community outreach was also the visioning. And the team visioning, again, we had Dennis and his team, we had Principal Rentala, we had community members on our team as well as the principal and the teachers. We had a former teacher on our team and some other community members. And we had a consultant collaborative learning network who came with us to help lead the visioning session. The visioning sessions, we had several of them. The first one was a Reflect and Inspire workshop, where, again, similar to the community meeting, we looked at photo inspiration, we discussed collaboration and project-based learning and what some of the range of options could be, how we could reuse the school, potentials for new school options. We looked at a broad spectrum of ideas and concepts and developed through that some guiding principles. In between that visioning session and the next one, we did some tours where we looked at several schools, Casa Grande, Westwood High School, and also Hopi Elementary, to see a variety of spaces that would give the teachers and some of the community members an idea of what is also out there and maybe some food for thought. Some of the things that came back were the use of natural light, the mix of new and renovated construction at Westwood, and certainly they liked the location and the security at Hopi Elementary. The third or the last visioning workshop was called the Discover Workshop, where we actually had developed at the previous workshop some options. And those options were, in the full spectrum, the do nothing option, which is to keep the school as it is exactly, liven things up a little bit, and call it good. The second option was light touch transformation, where we keep all the buildings, but we repurpose them as best we can. The third option was the EXR, or expansion and renovation option, where we looked at perhaps some of the buildings need to be removed, and we could build a new portion that would help to service the classroom buildings. And the fourth option was a start over option. Overwhelmingly in that workshop, we actually discovered through ranked choice voting that the group preferred either the EXR, or the expansion renovation, which is the adaptive reuse of the school with some new construction, or a start over option. And you can see from this, using the ranked choice voting, the EXR, which is the expansion renovation option, the blue ones, did win. And then when we looked at the second choice of everybody, it still was the winner in that one. So using ranked choice voting, it showed that the group was very much in favor of that. The facility evaluation. So again, we had yet another team to look at the facility, and this required a little more specialized team. Again, Dennis's people helped us out by, I suppose I should call you Mr. Roller. Apologies. Dennis's team helped us out by letting us in and out of a million different places in that school. We had structural engineer, civil engineering, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. We had landscaping and an arborist as well because of the trees and the unique features on the site. In summary, the facility evaluation shows that there are a few challenges to the current campus, and given its age and use, it's not overly surprising. The civil upgrades specifically are one that is a challenge. There's definitely some upgrading required for code requirements in a number of areas. The arborist evaluation I'll go into very quickly. The structural system, ironically or interestingly, is in fantastic shape. Structurally, it is in great shape. But the systems of the school, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, all need full replacement. Specifically on the civil, the original services are past their life and need to be replaced, including sewer and water main, and the fields are certainly not meeting the storm retention requirements. The code requirements, architecturally, if we were to leave the buildings in place, are quite challenging. There's certainly ADA requirements, which we understand. All the systems need to be upgraded to current requirements, and also that the building size would require new fire lane access all the way around and sprinklering as well. So even in the do nothing option, as we call it, or the keep the buildings as they are, there's a significant amount of work that would need to be done to bring the code up to its required status. The arborist evaluation, not the world's greatest diagram, but generally speaking, all the trees that are highlighted in blue were recommended by the arborist to be removed. And those reasons were that they were trees that were either diseased, dying, or potentially hollow in the middle and therefore a threat to the school. So in that case, he had 64 trees being removed out of the 112. And we should take that with a little grain of salt, I think, because if we had that same arborist, or maybe any arborist, show up at your house and review the trees on your lot, might have an idea that some of those need to come down as well. So not always the case that they all need to come down, but he certainly thought that a significant number of those trees are either a threat to the safety of the site or potentially dead or dying in their current state. Systems replacement, I think it's no surprise that the systems from a school that was constructed in 1960 to 1964 in 3 phases is probably a little worn out. And actually, the pictures of the mechanical equipment is original equipment that is still running. There's certainly been adaptive use of a number of electrical systems and AV systems. The box on the bottom there is a quite crafty way of bringing in a lot of systems into one spot. The architectural modernization, again, this school was built from 1960 to 1964, and the finishes, millwork is original. The acoustic treatment is the blue piece up there is definitely worn out and original. So we do need to upgrade all of those finishes and materials throughout the school. And lastly, of course, the functional layout, and I started to talk about that a little bit with the community meeting, in that there are some functional concerns with the site the way it is, with the administration, although at the heart of the school, also not necessarily the best place for wayfinding, for entry, and for security within the site. Multi-purpose space is definitely a challenge here, and the phys ed or physical education classes aren't operating as appropriately there. And the music spaces or the music building is quite far away. So there are some functional challenges there. So, having said that, we know that our next steps, we have the board meeting tonight, we have a community meeting coming up on Thursday, and then we'll be coming back to you with a recommendation on September 3rd. Are there any questions?
Any questions from board members? Board Member Kravitz.
Just again, we've met in small, non-majority groups and seen this presentation, so that if lack of questions does not reflect a lack of interest.
Thank you.
Because we've asked them already. Thank you.
Board Member Beckham.
So I'll do my follow-up, but I'll have something a little different. Thank you for the presentation. And because not everybody in the neighborhood is on the internet, last Saturday, these particular flyers were put on the houses, I don't know, a mile radius of Hohokam. So I'm asking for all of the Hohokam families that are either here or watching tonight to please get out in your neighborhoods and have your neighbors come to the meeting. A meeting date is on here. It's this Thursday, and it's going to be at Coronado High School. And please come together, because this will be your opportunity to see the presentation and to ask your questions, and also to be able to give your input. Because as this says, they are here to listen, and they really do want the community's input, because they understand how important this school and facility is to your neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions. I have 2 things that you touched on, but I'd like the community to hear it as well. The first one, I want to thank you for really respecting the Haver design. I know that was important to the community, so much so that you actually brought someone that was really knowledgeable in to consult with you, I believe. So I appreciate that. Second, can you speak to the trees? As I've heard from many of the Hohokam community members that there were some important trees, and I know we had quite a list here, some that were dedicated over the years, and obviously we know they can't all be saved. But you had some creative ideas, and you might not be able to say exactly what those are tonight, but at respecting the fact that some of those trees were dedicated and important to certain community members. Can you speak to that a bit?
So in response to your first point, yes, we are speaking, and we've hired Allison King from Modern Phoenix to assist us with any design elements that we're working on relative to Ralph Haver. She's a biographer actually as well for Ralph Haver. And in response to your second question, or statement, I guess, the collaborative elements, some of the trees are dedicated. There's also some park benches and areas within the site that are dedicated. We are looking at the possibility of trees potentially that have to be removed or come down Can we reconstruct them? We're working with a local artist in the community. Can we reconstruct them as sculpture, park benches, maybe some part of the building, cladding, something to that effect? And also with the plaques and commemorative elements, can they be incorporated into some memory wall or something to that effect in the design? So we are making sure that we consider that and bring that along through the design.
Thank you.
Okay.
Board Member Greenberg, do you have any questions? Are you there? Okay, well, he's not.
I am. Sorry. No, I am here, but I was on mute. No, I do not have any questions. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Any further questions? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we move now to discussion item C, 7C, discussion on the school year calendar for 2020-2021.
Thank you, President Beckman, members of the board. What I discovered, if you remember last year, we dealt with a change in this current school year calendar that we are in, and one of the things that we did was we eliminated for this current year 2 professional development days after holidays, and in order for school to be dismissed have graduation the Thursday night before Memorial Day. When I looked at the calendar for 2021, I saw that that had already happened, that the original calendar that was approved by the board did not have those days. And so I announced to the teachers at the Welcome Back rally that we were going to start on August 10th and finish before Memorial Day. And lo and behold, I was not aware that the calendar had been changed, and I was looking at an old calendar. So I bring to you tonight for information a request to go back to the original calendar that was passed, and the other one, please, Melissa. You may have to stand there if I go back and forth. Oh, they're doing it back there? Okay. So the original calendar you will see has school starting on August 10th. Teacher return days to be determined, and I will seek teacher input on those days. The number of teacher days is not changing. How we configure them may, and it does not have a professional full day after fall break, the Monday after fall break, nor the Monday after winter break. So by changing those 2 days back to school days, we gain the 2 days that are needed to not start school on August 6th, which the new calendar had, and start school on August 10th. We've heard a lot this year about those 2 days where the professional development consisted of half a day of specialized training, but half a day of a large group speaker, in some cases motivational speaker, and that the value of that has to be weighed against the family's concerns for extending those vacations and with kids at home when the parents were not happy doing that. And what we have said, our commitment is that we continue to have half days for professional development, and that those half days will be meaningful. I believe that the best professional development, once school begins, is best served with smaller input followed by coaching in the classroom, rather than a large full day without the coaching and the follow-up. And that model is one that I have followed in many places, and much prefer the teaching followed by coaching and trying it out, and then come back for another short-term reflection, building up the next level, and so forth. So to me, the professional development works with the half days, as long as we truly commit to those being significant days, both the half-day in class as well as the half-day in training. And then we've heard a great deal, you can imagine, the last couple of weeks with the heat that we have had here about starting earlier. And so by giving it another week, starting in the second week rather than the first week of August, who knows what that will be, but at least it's an attempt to try to push the calendar back just a little bit. The fact that Memorial Day is on May 31st helps us, because that's later, so we can get the days in before Memorial Day. But those are the changes and some of the thoughts behind why I am bringing this to you, and certainly welcome any questions you might have.
Any questions from board members?
I have one.
Board Member Greenberg.
This is probably mainly just a reconfirmation, but when I was speaking to certain people, and we've obviously seen from sister districts that they've started making election days, either half days or days off, and I had brought this up earlier, and the response I received was the calendar was largely set in stone, and that making that change would be quite difficult. Is that still the case with the, reverting back to the old calendar and making these changes?
It's still the case that we do not have, I would guess election day is November 3rd, 2020. We do not have that day off. My reasoning for not wanting to go that way is that greater and greater numbers are on early ballot, mail and early ballot, and the need for going to the polling place is not the same, and it's parents and not kids. But we do programs in civics that help the kids through whether it be kids voting or other programs that are helpful in that realm. But taking that day off, that would either push us to after Memorial Day or the first week of August start, and I really would rather not do that.
Nope, that's good. All right, thank you very much.
Any other questions from board members? Board Member Beckham.
Dr. Creekard, you mentioned a process to have the teachers be involved in the decision of, it sounded like, and I wanted to confirm this, is it a start date as well as PD, what those look like, or what?
It would be the start date. It would be the work days. Give them the option, not individually, but as a group, through survey mechanism they have 6 days in addition to the days that they have students. One day is traditionally the Friday after graduation as a teacher work day, so that's one. And so the other 5 could be either, as we did this year, 3 days before school starts, would be first week of August, and 3 days after Memorial Day, 2 days after Memorial Day, excuse me. Or the other option would be all 5 days in August that first week, and they would be done also Memorial Day weekend. In talking to our educational services and teaching and learning group, said, doesn't make any difference to us. We're all here. It's just a matter of tell us what to do, and then we'll plan the programs accordingly. So Cheryl's nodding, Kim is nodding. Thank you for that affirmation. And then we will develop, survey the teachers.
When are you anticipating this survey to go out? So that
because it will involve both SEA and non-SEA members, I have a meeting with Chris Ambry, I believe, on Monday, and so I was going to talk to her about that on Monday, and then we'll put this out soon so that when we come back with this calendar on September 3rd, we will have those dates for you.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Creekard. We're going to move now to our information discussion item 7D, the fiscal year 2019-2020 tax rate. Mr. Gadd?
you, Madam President, members of the board. I'm not sure we have a microphone, but I will speak up louder. The slide that is in your packet, which is going to come up now, reflects the tax rate that we both estimated for this year and for next year. And it's up there now. This year, when the board adopted this current year's budget, we estimated a tax rate of $3.63. The final set by the state is at $3.64, so we were within a penny, basically, of the rate. The difference between the two may be significant. The legislature in the last session had moved desegregation from primary to secondary. That move does two things. One is it makes desegregation ineligible for state aid, and that would affect districts who receive state aid, but not us. And it also puts it into a category with those other budgets in secondary that ultimately require a voter authorization in order to exist in secondary. There wasn't a requirement of a vote, but it certainly moves them closer to all of the other funds within secondary require a vote. That created a court action, and the judge ruled that the segregation budget should go back to where it was, which is primary, and that's where it is now. It's back to where it originated from, and directed the state that it should continue its support in those lesser valuation districts for purposes of state aid. So it puts it back to where it started. That's the only difference really between what we thought was the case and then overruled by the courts later for what's in the primary and what's in the secondary. The good thing to report here is our rate basically stayed flat. We have, as the board is aware, probably a tax rate that's 50% of what all of our neighbors are that are unified. So that certainly bodes well for Scottsdale School District taxpayers in that they are paying considerably less per $100 of assessed valuation than basically everyone that we would normally compare to. So that's a description. And this next slide, I'm going backwards. The next slide is the history of the tax rate. Again, something the district should be proud of. It had a rate in 15-16 that was $3.85, and that rate now is down to $3.64. So it's been a declining rate for at least the last 3 years. Again, and that's in light of elections concerning capital outlay overrides, M&O overrides, bond elections. The district has been able to maintain a declining tax rate in light of the additional spending that's authorized by those particular elections. So that, Madam President, members of the board, is a brief report. I wanted to make sure that you knew where the rate was and how it compared to what we originally estimated. It was set by the Board of Supervisors about a week ago, so that's the latest.
Okay, any questions from board members? Okay, none? Thank you, Mr. Gadd. Okay, moving to information and discussion item 7E, maintenance and operations override voter information pamphlet. Also, Mr.
Also,
Gadd.
Mr. Gadd.
Thank you, Dr. Crickard and Madam President. This is a final version of the pamphlet that will be mailed to households in the district by the county. It contains in it the purposes, and those are specified at the bottom of page 2. The purposes are those that we reviewed with the board at a previous meeting. We made a couple of changes that the board wanted us to make, and those are reflected here. They also are in order, as near as we could make them in order, of the Hanover research study as to what the priorities in the community were. So we tried to do that. And just, it's for information, this pamphlet is now set in stone, but we wanted you to be sure you knew what it said and what it looks like, and it's going to be going out to the voters the end of September. and that will be information then that they would follow up on when they receive their ballots the first part of October for mail-in balloting. So it's here for your information. The bullet points that are specified both in the agenda item and in the pamphlet are ones that we will emphasize in the 4 public hearings, 5 public hearings that Dr. Picard mentioned earlier that we're holding at each one of the high schools. We will have, you probably have received by now, an informational fact flyer that we are using to put on school counters. There's both a flyer and a frequently asked questions, so there's a 2-pager. One goes through basically the purposes of the override, along with some information about tax rate and some other things. The other one is, what would you want to know if you were a voter and unfamiliar with maintenance and operations overrides? That's included in that flyer, the second flyer on frequently asked questions. If you haven't gotten those, we will make sure that you get them. They're just now going to the printer. We have both an English and Spanish version. That's typical of most districts who offer fairly major elections like this one, along with the public hearings. And remember, this is an all mail-in election. So basically the decision about what you, either yes or no, occurs in October, and fairly early in October. So that just is for your information, because that's when the majority of those mail-in ballots come in. And it is not the typical where we're all used to, before Election Day, you know, we rush around and get our ballot and so forth. This is a different kind of election. It's not necessarily a less cost election, but it is different. So with that, Madam President, if you or members of the board have any questions, we're happy to try to answer.
Mr. Gadd, was there a sample of that brochure, or is that going to be on the website or?
Yes, it is going to be on the website, and I think Dr. Creekard's got some that he's going to be sending to you. We'll make sure that you get that. As I say, it's a 2-pager.
Mm-hmm.
It's in color. It looks pretty nice, we think. And we're making 200 copies for each school to have it out on the counter. Remember, we have some prohibitions. We can't give it to students and we can't give it to others because that's an influence on the election. It is here, it's on the counter. If you want it, you can pick it up, and it's strictly factual. There is nothing in there that tells the person how to vote. So that's, and we'll make sure we get it to you if you don't already have it.
Okay.
We'll send that to you tomorrow.
Thank you. Any board member questions for Mr. Gadd? Okay. Okay, Sandra, do I have any public comment cards on the items that were discussed? I do not. Okay, we move on to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Board Member Perleberg moves. Do I have a second?
Second.
Board Member Kravitz seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay. Do I have any cards on any of our action items? We do not. Okay, we move now then to our action items. First action item is 9A. Are there any questions or discussions on the recommendation for the approval of the superintendent's 2019-2020 performance-based compensation goals? Board Member Beckham.
I believe that I had asked for the terminology in number 1 to be added, for just that it was the elementary school. So
Yes,
instead of
it
just
should have.
school, and so I didn't know if everybody was aware that Dr. Pickard had agreed to add that word.
So there are several
Okay. Changes.
clarifications, if I might, on. This was, of course, the memo that I sent you several copies of, one without changes. I'm sorry about that, and then changed again, so you can see the performance pay are the last 4 on this memo. The first one, recommend next elementary school bond project to the governing board. Number 2, show proof of academic progress for 2018-19 school year in the Coronado learning community based on district metrics. And I think some of you may remember this. This was actually, I'm sorry, Board Member Beckham, I said December. Is actually, there was a presentation in November, and then this came back after it was refined in January of this year, the district metrics, and Cindy Bachna will use those same metrics, just concentrating on the Coronado Learning Complex for this because of the need to know whether or not we're successful with the CSI program. And then thirdly was train all school staffs in the SEL procedures, and that's currently in a planning stage. We have some programs that are ongoing. I will be working through Dr. Sackos with Shannon Cron, who runs those programs for the district, and make sure that we are meeting the needs of the individual schools. We're not talking about same size fits all. We're talking about what are the needs of the school that they see in this whole array of social emotional learning issues. Some schools have been trained in how to deal with the threat of suicide. Some schools have been trained in how to destigmatize mental health. Some schools have been dealing simply with respectful treatment of all students and through positive behavior and PBIS. So we are looking at that for all schools to be trained, and then fourthly, conduct the community office hours that the governing board had asked that I do in each learning community and given the dates there. And you'll notice in my introductory statement above those four, I've also put the date in that all of these are to be completed by May 21st of 2020.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Creekard? Board Member Beckham.
Thank you. A couple of questions just to clarify. Coronado Learning Community will be which schools, and will those schools be individually looked at through metrics, or will they be combined? I assume that since you've got elementary, you've got 1K8, and you have high school, they will be looked at individually based on these metrics, or that's where I'm trying to get clarification, so we know what you're actually going to end up
So it
presenting.
is all schools. It is Coronado High School. It is Tonalea K-8. It is Hohokam Yavapai combination and Pima Elementary School. The metrics itself is divided up into elementary, middle school, and high school. It'll be divided that way. And yes, we can also do the individual schools, so we see not just the overall, but the more specifics as to which school are doing well in some areas or maybe not as well in others, and not have that be lost in the larger aggregate scores. Yeah.
And then when will this most likely be presented to us? What month?
I've said before May 21st. Now, this is data that we have now, so it's a matter of getting that done. I think I talked to Dr. Bachna today, and she has been, as you can imagine, very involved in keeping track of our first 10-day enrollment, and now there are requests for open enrollment numbers, which I will share with you when those are cleaned up. And I said to her today, it's not urgent on this, but we would like to do it while the data is still fresh and usable. So I would hope that we would have it by the end of the first quarter or early in the second quarter.
So, and I apologize to the public. I know this is tedious work, but we need to go through it. Otherwise, when we do our evaluation, we don't want to have one or two board members thinking that this item meant A, and the other two or three board members thinking it meant B, because then it causes a real problem. So with this, are you looking at having a target? Because you say show proof of. What is that actual proof that you're anticipating? Because I know in that particular document, if I can remember right, we kind of put a target in there. Are you saying you're going to meet that target, or are you just going to show growth? What's the actual measurement that you'll be using?
On this document, the target, as was finally presented to the board in January, the targets were removed from the original. This was after the discussion in November. So we will be looking at growth because it will show data from 2015-16 school year through 18, 19, so it'll be 4 years. And so we're looking for growth and positive trends.
Can I ask you a quick question? Just, I don't expect you to have an answer tonight since we're discussing the complex and then the individual schools and looking at growth, et cetera. Obviously, Hohokam and Yavapai will still be sharing a campus at that time. And I know the community members have discussed, and again, no answer tonight for this, but you'll be taking, it's a little more complicated to discuss the schools and determine this data for two separate schools sharing a campus. Have we determined how we're going to look at that?
Well, for these purposes, they were two schools because it's 18, 19 data, so it's an easy answer for this year. For next year, we have said that the data that we are trying to keep separate of the two schools is the enrollment because of the Yavapai growth plan. But I hope that we will have a decision on that growth plan. There will be an opportunity for a decision in November of this year for the growth schools, and so we'll wait and see what that decision is on Yavapai as to how we deal with Yavapai in next spring's AZ merit tests and the results.
Thank you.
I'll
Board
go back. So number 3, do you anticipate providing just a report to us that would say, show each school and show the training in SEL at each school, or what do you plan on providing the board?
Yes, I will have what we call artifacts showing that I have accomplished all of these. Obviously, the first one would be a board presentation and agenda item, but the others that you will want to see what data we do have on that, and so I will be providing that after May 21st, I assume, maybe before.
And what department is responsible for the SEL training?
That's the Department of Student Support Services.
Further questions?
I just wanted to add on number 4. The more that I reflected on just having one opportunity for coffee with Creekguard, it just didn't settle real well with me. I had anticipated that maybe it would be once a quarter in each complex. So I had mentioned this, and I understand it's just a difference of an opinion, but I would like to get my other board members' opinions. If you felt that having just one coffee with the superintendent throughout the year, and I was looking at maybe proposing that we would have 2, one in the first semester at each complex, and then another one in the second semester. And the reason I feel this is so important, because I think that one of the areas that SUSD has prided itself in is relationships and community. And we all know that we are trying and striving to build community. And I think one of the best ways to build community is to be able to provide opportunity for the teachers and the communities, the students, and the parents to be able to have office hours with our superintendent. And I know in the past they've said, well, it's not that well attended a lot of times, but I think it just takes time sometimes to show that you're willing and that you're intentional in wanting to build these relationships. And over time, more people will want to reach out and voice their opinions and give their comments and input. So I just wanted to bring that up to other board members to see if there was any interest with anybody else.
Board Member Kravitz.
Well, I would agree. I think, and it also depends on how the meetings are run. I feel strongly if it's just the superintendent that shows up to the meetings, that people in the community are more apt to speak their mind, and in the past when a superintendent has showed up with a whole team, people are wondering why is the team there instead of doing the work of the district. I guess, to split the baby, I guess we could say, I would like to see how the meeting at Saguaro goes and what the turnout is. And from there, if the turnout is and I think will be robust, we could look at adding some more community meetings to the schedule. because I have a feeling that there will be people in the community who will want to see more of you.
Board Member Perleberg.
Okay.
Yeah, bring your historical.
Well, I mean, but you, Board Member, well, you also, no, I totally understand, and no, my point is that you did say, kind of the elephant in the room is the attendance in the past. So the history of this, you know, you go back, Barrissey or Peterson or whoever has done these in the past, you know, I would really question the effectiveness and successfulness of them. I think who you tend to draw at kind of just meetings like that, and to Board Member Kravitz's point, when you have a large number of staff, there's a lot of misperceptions. It's six one way, half dozen the other. Well, there's another term I don't want to use because it kind of has bad word in it. But you're hurting if you do, and you're hurting if you don't.
Darn
These
if you
things.
do,
Yes, darn. Thank you. But I've seriously questioned the effectiveness of these meetings. When you ask our community to kind of come together and you know, obviously everyone's schedules are very different, and if there's not a specific topic, not a specific conversation, you're asking them to come, it's a lot of effort for some and just not much reward, in personal opinion.
So I think the ultimate goal here is you're trying to, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, get at that communications aspect that we keep talking about. So noting that Dr. Creekard most recently in the welcome back teacher things discussed putting, what are you calling them?
Rally.
Well, you know, the site.
Oh, the liaison, the
Yes,
superintendent's liaison?
the liaisons in as well at the same time. As a board, maybe discuss the most effective use of his time as well. I mean, I do want that communication piece, but he's a busy guy and we have a lot for him to do. I would like to see how, most definitely, at least one, because I do feel that the community wants to speak with him and see him and be able to voice their concerns, as evidenced tonight, you know. But I want to see how that goes, because I think that is a great tool to provide some feedback directly to you regarding the individual schools and the communities themselves. And then again, also see what we have in the way of turnout, because they sound great, but as you know, in the past, you get, and you probably get the most turnout in the beginning, right? And then maybe less as you go on, or as I've seen, because they're new in the beginning. But it is a dialogue, for sure. But to your point, Board Member Kravitz, I'd like to see, and Perleberg, and certainly Beckham, how they go. Any other discussions or questions?
I had one more thing. Oh, sorry.
Ms. Como?
I just have to speak up. I mean, I've gone through this.
Sorry, I appreciate her.
I don't even know how many superintendents, and I could tell you that attendance was at most 2 people, and usually none. And it was a waste of the superintendent's time, quite frankly.
Thank you.
I would like to just speak to my own personal experience of when I went to Hohokam Middle School. I had to wait over an hour to speak, and when I was at Cherokee, I had to wait over an hour. Both teachers and, well, there might have been the anomalies, but I think that the opportunity to be able to have a voice in this district is very strong.
Yes.
I think also the key is that when you voice your opinion and then nothing is done about it, you get very discouraged, parents. So the key is that the leadership is listening and is following up with responses that answer the questions. Maybe not always the answer that they want, but they are answered. And I think in the past, the culture has been that they've had them, but then they haven't had the response that whether it's been a positive or negative response, there just was no communication after that. So I think in trying to build that community, trying to build a culture of communication, we have got to start to try. We know through the Hanover study, it is one of the biggest problems we have. We heard it from our students as well. They don't feel like they're being heard. And so we've got to start somewhere to say, hey, we're going to start listening. And it may start out very slow, but that's when you have to take that extra effort and say, I'm going to make that opportunity, I'm going to be available for you, and that's when it can start to build. And it may take a while.
Board Member Kravitz, did you have a?
Oh, yeah, I had just a second thing. I think attendance is often predicated upon what's happening in each learning community. I will bet you a cup of coffee that on October 23rd, there will be a larger turnout at Arcadia than possibly at Saguaro unless something monumental happens at that school.
No, the monumental thing will happen at Arcadia to take care of those issues.
Well, yeah, well, and then hopefully there'll be a lot of people who will be showing up to say that they're pleased. But as of today, I would say that there'd be more people showing up at Arcadia. And depending on what's going on at each school, when the meeting is planned, there could be greater turnout. But I think we should see how the one at Saguaro goes, and people may be reaching out to you to say, please visit our community because we want to speak with you.
Board Member Perleberg.
Well, and I mean, maybe the obvious answer is just what we're saying in here. When we know there's an issue in a community, we all know it. It's not hidden, it's not secret. And that's what should raise the flag of we need a community meeting with leadership, district leadership. I know the hesitations, and I understand the hesitations fully for a superintendent and a cabinet, leadership team to come onto a campus, stand next to the principal, and that dynamic can get very difficult and awkward. When if you've got a community who's kind of going around their principal and their leader on issues or something, these become very, very difficult conversations. But in the past, maybe that is the time to set up community office hours when because there is a little irony here. We have a community that's obviously upset, and yet our first meeting is set in Saguaro community. So, even that perception can be a bit odd, like why? So maybe it shouldn't be so much about just these regular set meetings, but just more the idea of our district, which I know it does, but the perception may be that our district leadership doesn't have a pulse on the community's issues as they're happening. So I'll just say that.
Well, and wouldn't you say, logically, if you go to a coffee and you are there for hours and the line is still, that you might need to have another one? That clearly that's driving another need. I think we obviously have to keep that open. Board Member Beckham?
I was listening.
Oh.
Just lost my train of thought.
Dr. Creekard or Board Member Beckham?
Let her finish. So, obviously, I will do what the majority of the board asked me to do. Follow that up. I'm pretty amazed in this stint as superintendent compared to two previous stints in other districts at the amount of contact that I have with parents. Mostly via email, granted, but I respond. I delegate issues to the appropriate people who have the firsthand answers. Follow up, but it's a tremendous amount of contact with parent and community members. I somewhat tongue-in-cheek responded to Board Member Beckham's request for how else are you going to communicate with a list of, all the different community organizations that I am a part of, or whose meetings I attend, or events that I attend, as well as school visits. I've visited 15 schools already since school started this year. Last year I visited all 29 schools in the first semester, and probably 3/4 of them in the second semester, and then multiple cases for some schools, depending on what issues were arising. So I will continue to do those things because I find that it's incredibly useful to show up uninvited, unannounced at a school and walk in and meet with the principal, walk the campus. I walked the campus on the first day of school at Arcadia. And I saw students, I saw the condition of the building and the grounds. I saw people busy, administrators, people in the office very busy. I learned a lot about what was going on there. And I also know that because I've been on the campuses, I know that a lot of what was said tonight was not what I saw or what I know about that campus. So I do a lot of visits. I try to be a visible leader. And so when I am on the campus, people stop and talk to me. I was at Arcadia yesterday afternoon, and Melissa and I spent some time talking to one of the counselors. We're aware of the counselor situation, and we offered help. But we don't. What we have been doing this year in terms of offering help is not saying, we're going to give you this kind of person. No, we say, what is it that you need? Because different schools need, somebody might need an extra counselor, but somebody else might say, I'd rather have a social worker. So the communication is constant. And so I've also heard that in these coffees that it's common for the parents that you do see are the same parents that you see at parent council or that come to the board meetings. And so it's a lot of the same. But I'm willing to do whatever you ask me to do, and I frankly like the suggestion. Let's see how Saguaro goes. Now, of course, the ego in me says, well, I better be a better draw than one or two. I mean, but I'd be willing to come back with a report on that rather than tie us down to something. If we have different opinions, let's test it out and see.
Board Member Greenberg, did you have any questions or comments?
I do not.
Okay. Board Member Beckham?
I remembered what I was going to say beforehand, and that was that it is not, what I'm proposing goes beyond you as the superintendent. It's really a cultural shift. And so that the next superintendent would be keeping this on. So it's not just about, Dr. Creekard and who's coming in to talk to you and what is the crisis of the moment. That's not what it's about. So that it's really about that we are a public institution, that we want to listen to our community, and that we're providing that opportunity. So it lives beyond and hopefully will grow beyond, and that then the perception will be is that that we are available and that we do take action. So I just wanted to say it's beyond just the individuals, leaders at this time.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Do you have more to say regarding action item 9A?
No.
Okay. Board Member Perleberg.
And I'm not looking to confuse this matter at all, but I don't know if these dates were chosen because maybe that's what fit well in with some of the campuses in there. In the complex, they maybe the complex has requested these dates. I just kind of can't help noting that, we have a rebuild in the Chaparral complex, we have a rebuild in the Coronado complex, and they're kind of, Chaparral's the last on the list. Just maybe want to, but I don't want to complicate anybody's calendars.
We have a facilities plan for the Saguaro complex coming in early.
That's so true. See, hadn't even thought about that.
So
okay,
we looked
sense.
at with the two initiatives that I have, this coffee with the community as well as, and then the other one being the superintendent's liaison. What do you call it? Staggered those. 1 month the coffee with the community, the next month the liaison with the teachers and so forth. And they are Wednesdays because Wednesday is usually a day where for some reason we have more availability.
Oh, okay, so these are all Wednesdays. So the 18th must be, it mustn't be the, December 18th is
the
not the
liaison
last day before Christmas, right? Or Christmas break.
Right before,
I mean,
yeah. I would maybe look at
Holiday
December
break.
18th. Not that this is set in stone and that can't
Yeah.
change, but that's the last day of school
Right.
before spring break. I doubt you're going to, I mean, Christmas break,
Yep.
you're going to get very many people there.
Okay.
Well, I was hoping for gifts.
Okay, do we have any further questions or discussion? Okay, then I'm going to make a motion to approve action item 9A, the superintendent's 2019-2020 performance-based compensation goals. Do I have a second?
Second.
Board Member Kravitz, seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. We move now to action item 9B. Are there any questions or discussion on the approval of Arizona School Boards Association proposed 2020 political agenda recommended by the Legislative Committee? Board Member Kravitz.
Oh, I'm sorry, let me just open up that item that was in board book, because I believe, sorry, there was something. Sorry, I'm just scrolling down. I thought there was something that was mentioned about one of their goals was putting DSEG money back into the primary tax, and that's already been done. And then, so I mean, when we vote on these, is this, we vote and we tell ASBA, you need to fix this? Or do we give them our direction now?
Board Member Beckham? Yeah.
As the delegate for last year and attended the delegate assembly, that is exactly what happens. They bring all their members, they have to have a quorum, and the members actually vote on each one of these items, but they've narrowed it down to the top 4 so that they have a lot more flexibility, and they did that last year. So all you do is you go to the assembly, and if you have any questions or amendments, you have an opportunity to do that. And then as a district, you vote yes, you approve this particular slate, and this is what they are going out and advocating for the 1920 year. And if you vote no as a district, then you vote no, that you don't support it.
That I remember, but I wasn't sure.
And then whoever, you know, depending upon what the actual vote is of their, I think they have 208 or members, then that is what they will end up doing.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Board Member Furler.
Thank you. No, I am always a bit confused on their process, honestly, with all of this. So I'm trying to understand, do you as a delegate vote on each? I mean, because we have this political agenda with 4 very broad items. And then you have this supporting document, which I know in the past I've kind of said I'm not supportive of, honestly, just in itself as a process and how it comes across, because it is a laundry list, a long laundry list. So do the delegates vote on each one of these items in the long laundry list of wishes, basically, or is it as a whole? I guess that's what I've never fully understood.
I don't have the exact answer.
It was
but
my
I believe it's
understanding it
just
was a
the
whole.
4 as a whole, and then they're just providing the supplementary now as examples of what they would be doing. But it could be that you're voting on both.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't have that.
and I'll just say that's, go back to our original conversation, that is my problem with this. You've got this political agenda for very broad, that of course always sound great, yes, of course. And then they put underneath it a list of very specifics, lots of items that just, to me, water down any actual effective focus of specific things that are truly priority. And it just gets lost in we want everything. And I said it before, I'll say it again, I find this list, this long, long list of items, it is everything, which of course in today's climate, it's divisive. And I just don't like this process. I don't like how it's done, so
So
there
can
you
we
go.
review the 4? Okay, so, and correct me if I'm wrong, here, I don't know if you have the list, Michelle, or adequately and equitably funding district schools to at least the national median per pupil funding, preserving and strengthening local control, improving outcomes for all students, and requiring public accountability for taxpayer dollars spent on education. So if I'm understanding you, Board Member Perleberg, you're saying, because my understanding is that we're voting that this is their slate and we agree with it or we don't. You are saying there's more to it that we should consider per each of these items?
Well, to me, that's what ASBA's telling us. And that's what's I've always found odd, is they have adequately, equitably fund district schools. Okay, that to me, yeah, is a very straightforward statement. Fine. Then there's a list attached to it that has literally 15, just for that one item, has 15 specific things that they, I assume, are saying we want to advocate for. And that is where I feel I can, and multiply that by the other 3 items. You have 15 under the first, you have 9 under the second, you have improve outcomes for all students, you have 8 there, and then 5 on the other. You just create this list that I don't understand the effectiveness, and I feel like when you barrel into those, each and every one of the items, you know, it just divides our public ed community even more than we always, you know, struggle in. So that's my opinion.
And I think it was cumbersome for districts to understand, and maybe for the ASBA advocacy committee, if you will. I think it's actually a separate organization, that nonprofit that they have, that they actually lobby and advocate under. They also found that, and that's why they went to this. So their explanation, not whether, I'm just saying what is explained to me a year ago, was that was one of the reasons that they were going to this simplified form, because instead of having a long laundry list of 15 items that when they sat down in front of a legislature and said, okay, we've promised our districts we're going to advocate for these 15, they said, we're going to put it under kind of a broad subject matter, and then give some 15, let's just take that first one as example, 15 examples, and depending upon at that year, at that time, which one was going to be furthering the district's laws and policies that could be made by the legislators, then they would pick and choose which ones they would advocate for, so that they didn't advocate for 15. They may only advocate for 1 or 2, which therefore narrowed the focus. And so, but you don't know which one of those they're going to be. You're absolutely right in that. They get to decide that.
No. Yeah.
So,
and
but that's the reason that they did.
Yeah, and there's no comment here on, you know, these are examples,
No.
or pick from this list your top. You know, again,
It seems like whatever.
It's about the
sorry.
process, and I just,
It's like
yeah.
any advocacy or lobbying.
I understand.
When you're part of an organization, sometimes you may not agree with everything, but you go along
Yeah.
with the platform that they have.
Right. Well, and I said I would be even
Right,
much
that's
more
fine.
comfortable if they, as an organization, said, here is our, you know, our number 1, you know, agenda item, adequately, equitably fund district schools, and here's the things we're focused on. Here's the 2 things. That I could understand a lot better, and you know, just support, because you truly understand what they are advocating for specifically down at the legislature. And so that's, again, it's nothing about anything specific on these lists. It's, I
That you
just
really may
feel
not
like
know what-
advocacy for public ed needs to look a little different. So, thank you, I'm done. I'm done.
Well, this is not clear.
Well, it's very confusing, especially for new board members. So,
Well, it doesn't sound like it's
Sandy
clear
went
for-
down there with me last year, and I can say it is,
my
you know,
request button.
depending upon how you feel about, you know, the membership, and that you want them advocating for those 4 items or not, would determine your vote.
And I may be repetitive of what you were
Board
saying.
Member Kravitz.
But I'm guessing that. Excuse me, I'm guessing that part of this is, they have these, you know, what is it, what are they calling these items? Sorry.
Support.
The supporting documentation. I'm guessing it's kind of like darts or spaghetti. You throw it at the wall and see what sticks. They meet with legislators, see what ideas gain traction, and who will support whatever idea, and that's what they run with. But they're not running with all, 15, bullet points under each item. I get your point. There is a purpose for ASBA. I'm glad we get the policy updates for Michelle, and that's probably, for our district, that's probably one of the best things that we get out of ASBA.
Board Member Beckham, as a delegate, do you, and I don't see it here, do we have a date that we had to vote on? Is it now? On
Yes,
this by?
it's September 7th is the delegate assembly, Saturday, September 7th.
Okay.
Yeah, isn't it? No, we don't.
To table it and get more
No, it's
information
fine.
and clarity.
I can tell you, if, am I correct? Last year, we decided as a board, I don't remember what the vote count was, but the outcome was that we voted against it. Was that correct?
Or is that the year
I know. I know. I'm trying to remember if
I
it
can't
sounds
remember.
right. It
I
sounds
think
like
that's possibly what happened last year.
we didn't vote. Yeah.
We decided that we
Right.
would not, but we would vote against
Yeah.
it. It did pass,
Right.
I can tell you
It
that.
did pass.
Yes, it did.
And again, I'm not trying to sway anybody here. I'm just to say, I'm not trying to sway. This is my reflection. To Board Member Kravitz's point, I think it's an excellent one. When you do have an advocacy group, lobbyist, whatever you want to call them, I would love them to be able to tell us which specific ones will float and which ones have a little strength in them rather than a big long list. That is kind of what you'd love to expect, rather than just the spaghetti on the wall tag. So again, it's nothing about these specific goals, these agenda items. It's just how I perceive as we should really actually be moving forward, so.
Okay, so this is still, I wish we could ask questions of them. I mean, to the point of this discussion, I read this, it says, at the delegate assembly, every ASBA member district has an equal vote and an equal voice in developing the ASBA political agenda for the year ahead. This critical document determines the association's positions on legislation and informs all of our advocacy efforts in 4 core areas, and those are the ones that I read before. So, again, you are saying that there is more to it than them just lobbying and advocating for these 4 areas, and that we don't have all the information.
But you're not going to, because of what I think I tried to say, and I think Sandy said it better, is that because depending upon when they go down there, they're going to be advocating for that general goal. But then there could be specifics in the policy, and they're not just going to step back at that point. If they believe that some more controversial item that they might advocate for that policy, even though it's not written down there, they're going to do that because it achieves that number 1 goal. And that's correct. That's what you don't know what they're going to say and what they're going to stand behind. And
Mr. Gadd,
I'll try-
did you have a
I'll
comment
try-
here that you can kind of
Madam
lay us
President,
out?
members of the board, maybe a little bit of help here.
Thank you.
I've been around this organization, that organization, for a very long time. And I know Cotterman very well, who is the lobbyist for ASBA. That list is underneath. They don't want to get caught pursuing a course of action that's not been approved by the school board members. So they list all of the courses of action they think they might try to use or might be viable as you've already talked about. And so if I do that and someone says, well, how come you're advocating in this particular way? They pull out number 14 under number 3 and say, see, it was approved by the electorate, and that's the authority we have in terms of putting forth that particular strategy. That's what that's all about. The 4 are the 4. But how we get to there, I could do it in 15 different ways, and I don't know which way, but I don't want to be out there advocating for a particular way that's not on the list and then be criticized for having selected a pathway that no one ever saw or approved. That's why it is organized the way it is. So just, I hope that helps a little bit.
I think that's what we ended up doing last
It just makes me more affirmed in my position, actually. But thank you. I understand what you're saying.
Board Member Greenberg, did you have any questions or discussion?
They might advocate for something.
I don't think so. I think at the end of the day, I mean, the point is that ASBA is trying to advocate on behalf of public school districts, which is what we are, and they do have some, very high quality staff members there, and a pretty good, high quality team that tries to do that. And as Mr. Gadd said, puts together potential ways of achieving that goal, and we are a member of it. So I think to say, well, I want to achieve goal X, and I agree with ASBA on that, and then get upset when they take steps to do it, that you go, oh, well, I didn't mean for them to do this to achieve that. I mean, I think this is their lobbyist field of expertise. This is their, that's their realm. I'm not a lobbyist, and I'm not somebody who's down at Capitol Hill every day, down at the Capitol, sorry, not Capitol Hill, down at the Capitol, lobbying these people, and I don't know what types of measures certain, legislators might agree with or disagree with. So, I personally support this memorandum that they've provided us, their policy proposals, and that's probably all I have to say about that.
Board Member Beckham?
I can let you know,
Go ahead.
I supported it last year, and I will be supporting it this year.
Okay. Board Member Kravitz?
No, I turned mine off.
Okay, all right. I think we need to move forward. Okay, I make a motion to approve action item 9B, Arizona School Boards Association proposed 2020 political agenda recommended by the Legislative Committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Board Member Beckham seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion passes 4-1 with Board Member Perleberg opposing. Okay, moving on to our final action item 9C, a selection of a delegate and alternate to the Arizona School Boards Association Delegate Assembly, September 7th, 2019. Board Member Beckham?
Is it the time to nominate a delegate? I would, yes, is that the answer? Yes?
Yes, it is.
I would like to nominate the alternate delegate last year, which was Board Member Kravitz. Thank you.
I second.
All right.
As the
As the
delegate.
delegate.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Now, are we nominating an alternate? Okay. Someone want to nominate an
Board Member
alternate?
Kravitz, are you nominating?
Oh, yeah, I'll
Are you
nominate.
nominating?
Oh, yeah. Well, you can go nominate. You.
Oh, well, I personally would nominate Board Member Beckham.
And I second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes
Aye.
5-0. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to agenda item 10, future items. Do I have any requests for future items?
Good.
Any requests for future items? Yes. Board Member Beckham?
We had on the consent agenda a item for the Scottsdale online program, and I had reached out to Dr. Sakos to provide a broader and deeper background and update on the efficacy of the program for this month's agenda item for approval, and she provided me the information, so I want to thank you, Dr. Sakos. What we approved is a one-year funding of this new curriculum and platform that we will be using this year. So, because then that means that next year, about this time, we'll be getting a request again. I am requesting Dr. Creekgard to initiate a complete evaluation of the program because I don't believe one has been done since its inception, which would be including the numbers, types of students, percentage of passing grades, AP passing rates, graduation rates, dropout rates, budget, future plans for the program, because I understand we have some exciting future plans for the program. And I think it would be great to get an evaluation that could be presented, a written evaluation that probably could be maybe presented in the spring of next year, and so that we could be looking at this in possibly June, because Scottsdale Online starts when school starts, so I'd like to be approving it before the school.
Dr. Creekard?
Actually, it's pretty much year-round because they use it in summer school as well.
I just think it would be helpful, since it's something that we're not
Sure.
very familiar with, because
Sure.
it's the first time it's come to us, and
Sure.
we've been on the board for 2.5 years. The second item I would like to look at is developing a stronger open enrollment policy and identifying site capacity in relation to classroom space and programming, with the goal of smoothing out the enrollment processes for principals and teachers, and thus benefiting our students.
I'm sorry. Board Member Perleberg.
Thank you. I'm not, obviously not opposed to that agenda item, but after listening to our community tonight and hearing that request, I'm in serious Groundhog Day as a board member. And I'm sure there are many out there that feel the same way I do. This conversation has happened so many times in our community. It is, in my mind, with the history that I've had, it is not about reviewing policy. Again, that has happened numerous times. The issue that we face is an ever-changing philosophy around open enrollment, size of our schools, our declining enrollment, and our realities. And that is the real core of this problem. I have sat on a board where I'm a minority board member trying to argue that we cannot be sustainable by filling certain schools to make up for low-enrolled schools. I have been on a board where the majority understood that kind of reality. That's not neighborhood schools. We have to bring our communities back into our low-enrolled schools. We can't overfill our schools. And now I'm sitting on a board where I'm not even sure what we are. But the philosophy changes. It's not about policy language. The policy language is what flip-flops with the philosophy of open enrollment. Our district has to find out who we are. And as a board member who's had that conversation a lot in the past, I hope we don't forget the past and we act like we're starting fresh in this conversation. And I certainly hope we don't look away from the realities we've had for almost 20 years. So I'm just going to beat that dead horse.
I'm going
Thank
to
you.
defer to Michelle for just a second because I want to make sure that this stays true to future agenda items and that we don't open up a discussion tonight. Because while I think that those are great statements, I don't want to get into where we start talking about open enrollment and what's worked and not worked and whatnot. I just want to make sure that, okay? Okay, thank you. Okay, Board Member Kravitz?
Sorry, I agree with everything that's been said about that, so I won't go there again. And I have asked Dr. Creekard about the topic I'm going to mention, but I want to say it publicly because if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, they don't know that you've made this request. So my request is, and I believe it's coming, but it wasn't originally on the list of agenda items to consider, again, a discussion about, or presentation about school start times and bus schedules. Because I've been asking about this since before you got here, so thank you.
Thank you, and that is on our calendar for December.
I will note that. Okay. Board Member Beckham?
So one of the reasons I brought it up is because I thought we are finally having that discussion. Are we not? That Board Member Perlberg talked about, we're having that this fall.
we are having facility capacity discussions and plans for each learning community, yes.
Okay. All right, any other requests for future items? All right, moving on then to our dates of our upcoming meetings. Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019 at 5 p.m., special board meeting at the MDA. And Tuesday, September 17th, 2019 at 5 p.m., a regular governing board meeting at Coronado High School. Do I have any governing board reports? Board Member Greenberg?
I'd like to give a quick one.
Okay, Board Member Greenberg?
Just very quickly, obviously over this summer, I and my colleagues on the board have been in constant communication with the administration leading up to the first day of school, first few weeks. I know a number of my colleagues and I attended various events, including the new teacher orientation day, the SEA, and breakfast. And we've also been in constant communication with parents, including those from Arcadia and some of the learning communities. I did just want to say that, as an elected board member and as the board member for the Arcadia learning community, I am very sorry for, the confusion and any distress and anxiety that students or their parents might be feeling in these first few weeks of school. At the end of the day, the buck stops with me and with us as board members. And I know that our administration and governing board members are working very hard to, address those concerns and deal with those issues as they arise. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Any other reports? Board Member Kravitz?
Thank you. I just wanted to congratulate Principal Stonebrace and her team at Cheyenne, the teachers, the staff that have made that school a success with their recognition from Spalding. But I would also like to acknowledge the parents that stridently advocated for the program at Cheyenne, for a traditional school, 22 years ago. And from what I understand, there was often pushback from some people in the district at the time. So I would like to thank the parents that advocated for that program at that school, because today's success is built upon their involvement in that school. So thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Beckham?
I was just going to mention again that this Thursday, August 22nd, is the Hohokam community meeting, and it will be here at Coronado High School. Please come out.
Great. Okay, any others? No? Okay, I move to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Board Member Kravitz seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned at 7:48 p.m.